right, well, I'll give us a little official start.
Okay.
Here we go with Landon Mayer. Just came off a guide trip for the first GoGuide podcast. Really looking forward to having you. Thanks for doing this. Landon.
Yeah,
Appreciate
pleasure,
it big
man.
time.
Thanks for coming out. Appreciate you having me on board.
Of course, no problem. We'll see if we can beat this rain.
Yeah.
It's been a little wild.
It's
Colorado.
coming in. Colorado weather.
The spring season has kept us on our toes. That's
It has,
for sure.
yeah. Springtime in the Rockies it never fails.
Right.
Well,
That's
for sure.
amazing.
Yep.
So to start, Landon, I guess I just want to take it back, obviously back to the beginning, before little Landon even knew what a fly fishing was.
Right.
Where did this passion originally derive from? Who introduced you to the sport? And when did you really start understanding you had a knack for it?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And, for me, it started, my roots were based on adventures with the family in this area, kind of South Park in Colorado, South Platte River drainage, the still waters, the rivers. I remember friends of the family introduced us to the sport of fly fishing and the passion. And I did a little bit of conventional angling when I was younger, but I think fly fishing really took hold around 8 years old. Came up and had a chance to start fishing in 11 Mile Canyon. That was my first chance and first opportunity to see, gleaming light off the fly line, rolling it over with the dry fly and a fish eating it. It was like something out of a movie.
Amazing.
It was really cool. But after that, I realized just how much diversity was in this area, and just being able to explore through my teens, through my 20s, 30s, and now, into my 40s and making a career of it. It's been great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you said you were about 13 when you got into the sport.
Yep.
How old were you when you first started guiding?
First started guiding right out of high school, so I was 18 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. Graduating high school, my summer job was hopping on board and taking any trip that I could possibly get from some of the great anglers surrounding me. And at that time, believe it or not, Ed Engel, Phil Camera, John Barr's flies were coming into the market. It was a really exciting time. But anytime one of the senior guides needed a day off, they'd call and I'd immediately pick up the phone. Didn't even have to say much except, yes, I'll take the trip, right?
Right.
Do the trip as much as I could. And yeah, from high school, just moving on through college and just fell in love with it and realized that, it's a great way to give back and enjoying teaching. It's been something else.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. What was the first shop that you guided for, and how did they influence kind of your guiding style going into your career?
It's a great question. So I started out with Colorado Fishing Adventures, a service out of the Broadmoor Hotel, and my home shop at the time was the Peak Fly Shop in Colorado Springs. And being able to start with both of those services, mainly Colorado Fishing Adventures, and then the next year hopping on doing trips with Brad, Sherry Tomlinson at the Peak Fly Shop, and Bill Tomlinson was really awesome. I think the style for me was just watching some of the other anglers, but most importantly, one of my biggest influences for style was Scientific Anglers and their Mastery Series. One of the people I used to watch on videos was Doug Swisher and his microsecond wrist and all these different ways of teaching anglers to be effective at different angles and presentations. I used to rewind and watch that over and over again, and following that took some fly tying lessons from Gary Alameda at the Angler's Covey when I was 13, and it really just progressed from that point. But that style of guiding, where it's more of a learning catching scenario, giving back daily, is really what fit home with me. And I was thankful and very, very fortunate to be able to experience and fish this area, but most importantly, the people to believe in me and give me a shot at guiding.
100%.
Yeah.
And every time I think of guiding, I typically tend to break it down in my head into four main pillars, and that is kind of knowledge on the location and environment that you're going to be fishing,
Right.
casting technique and rig technique,
Yep.
and people skills, arguably most important, being
Yeah,
able
very
to
much so.
hold conversations and create genuine relationships with your client.
Absolutely.
And lastly, entomology, so understanding bugs, insects, how patterns are working.
Yeah.
And you've written a couple books
Sure.
explaining onto that. I'd like to talk about that a little bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great point you bring up. I think what you just did there is breaking it down in a system by number. And a lot of times being on the water with clients full time, you realize quickly that you can only obtain so much information. So if I were to unleash all the knowledge I have every single day, there's a good chance it'd be overboard because I'm so excited. It'd be 10 different tips for them to learn. I've learned since that point to break it down into 3. So I give anglers 3 tips, and a lot of times they'll start out with presentation, they'll start out with fighting trout, and then after we understand what we need to do to hook the fish, then we go into, like you said, understanding entomology, what kind of hatches we're dealing with, what is the water like, getting a presentation. and really just making sure that the step-by-step process at the end of the day, if the angler at least obtains 3 valuable tips and catches and lands fish, it's a win. That's the best way, in my opinion, to give back with an angler on the water every day, to where they don't just catch a fish, they understand how, why, and most importantly, they leave a better angler than when they arrive for the trip.
100%. I think that's one of the most valuable aspects a
Sure.
guide can pass on to their client.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the educational part, and genuinely teaching them, how to be a proper angler, how to even come back and do it, on their own. Some would
Oh,
say,
absolutely.
rather than just putting a client on fish.
Right,
So that
absolutely.
kind of leads into my next point. Obviously, you have years of experience to a younger guide who is just starting to make his career, starting to build his own brand in the industry.
Sure.
What are some of the most important points that they focus on in order to ensure building good, genuine relationships with their clients and getting that repeat clientele,
Yeah.
like most, strive for?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great questions. For a younger angler, I remember myself, I was so passionate and excited about guiding and getting out and being on the water full time. What I realized down the road as I started to develop these relationships, and like you said, these individuals are not only clients, they literally become lifelong friends. 18, 20 years with individuals where you spend countless hours on the water, you get to know one another, you build a rapport, and you understand how each other works on the water, how the angler fishes, how you can give information, how you can receive, and don't forget, remaining a student, I've learned a ton from clients. There's some really amazing anglers out there in the world. But I think honesty, being honest about everything that you're going to give to the client or can provide to the client is huge. If the water's off color, tell them the water's off color. If conditions are tough, the seasons have changed, it's colder than normal, warmer than normal, at least they understand the expectation when they go into the trip. And hard work, reputation is everything in this industry. If you want to build a brand and become the ultimate guide, the hard work that you give back day in and day out, people talk about that afterwards. You can have all the advertisement in the world, but the word of mouth is really the key. And that's what a lot of people trade stories and information. And a good example of that is, let's say you have a hard day in the water, which we all have. You're sweating bullets. You wish your angler could get a fish in the net. You're 6 hours in. Then you're 7 hours in. And then they hook a fish and they may lose it and you're at 8 hours. Eight hours in the day working hard, and you're like, man, we've got to get something in the net. Given that extra push, that extra hour, a new location, to where finally success comes by landing the fish, they not only learn how to be successful, they also learn how to persevere and kind of get through the challenges of the day, because this is a mental game. You have to go in, and my motto in that, in life and guiding and fishing, everything combined, is that positivity is a choice. And you have the choice to make the day positive when you start out. Start the day thinking, we're going to land fish. And if you do that and you end up landing fish, it makes you feel better, makes you believe in the day more and more, and it also prevents you from burning out. It becomes exciting to where every day is a new challenge.
100%. And clients can often sense that positivity.
Oh yeah, it's
If
contagious.
if their guide is in a bad mood, then the client's going to be in a bad mood. If the
Exactly.
guide's happy, the client's most likely going to
Exactly.
be happy.
That's so true.
That's such a useful tip for any young guides going out there.
Thanks. Yeah,
Um,
it's great.
I would like to talk a little bit about gear.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have amazing gear, amazing sponsorships.
Sure.
What exactly would you, I guess, recommend to a new angler getting into the sport when it comes to gear?
Oh, that's a great question. In the last 3 years, what I've noticed for gear that can withstand the test of time and also the elements, weather, conditions, all of that combined, it's tested product on the water. For example, if I'm working with Sims will mail out to a lot of their pro team and ambassador, their waders, to where those waders are tested for literally 200 days. 200 days on the water, tested tough. I think that really does hold true, and the value of what you're getting as a consumer for the product available in the market, you want to make sure that it's tested tough. It's not always the best weather, harsh conditions, harsh environments. The more extreme we make the trip, the more exciting it is. So I think testing product, ensuring that the product you're receiving from the company is found to be very successful, and also a company that has a good name. A good sponsorship is a company of, ambassador to the sport, where that company has provided so much information over the years, but also the same product with the information. So that helps out a lot. And if you look, you can see the warranties are there. I love product also that's made in the US as much as possible. If it's made in the hometowns of whether it be Colorado or Montana, wherever that may thrive. That really does help to give back, and just believing in the brand. Once you become a believer in a brand, that's really something you'll stick with for probably the many years ahead that you're going to be pursuing fly fishing.
Right. And one thing I found in this industry is it may be big, but word travels fast. And if you're a reputable sponsor or a reputable brand, like some of these larger companies, they're more than willing to help out other people in the industry,
Absolutely.
young guides, things like that, people just starting,
100%.
anything to help grow the industry as a whole. Most people are willing to help.
Oh, they are. It's amazing. And I think another key point to that, it's very rare to find somebody that sponsors, represents, or works in these companies that are not really good anglers. It's mind blowing. So when they're testing products and they're out there with a new fly line or a new fly or representing a new rod and reel, it's unreal because a lot of this information that's put into develop and design are from anglers within the company that in their own right could be guides because they're that skilled and they give back that much. So it's really cool to see that.
100%. And just through going to, obviously you go to all the fly fishing shows.
Sure.
Shout out to the fly fishing show.
Yeah.
Amazing tour.
It's unreal.
How important would you say, even just getting your face around, like showing up to these sorts of events like this, different expos, and really just mingling within the industry is to a young person's career?
Oh, it's enormous. And the Feremskis, and now Ben Feremski running the show, and when I got on board with Chuck, their whole family, they've done a great job. The fly fishing show is great because you're able to give back. You're still thinking about being on the water, talking about being on the water when you're not on the water. And I think from a learning perspective, it's probably one of the best ways within the sport of fly fishing or our industry to get the one-on-one. You can sign up for classes, learn from some of the experts at the classes. You can go to casting demonstrations, fly tying demos. You can do so many things at one show within 2 or 3 days that would probably take you realistically 60 days of being on the water to learn. So being able to have that in the cold season when we all get cabin fever and we're itching to get out for the next hatch, I think it's wonderful. And in addition to that, your local clubs. There's a lot of local clubs that do great events, something that's close to your hometown or somebody that you know is in the club. It's a great way to build relationships, friendships, and also have a chance to fish new areas.
100%. My favorite part about it was the variety of people that we got to talk to.
Yeah,
whether they were veterans in the industry or
yeah.
somebody coming in who's just heard of fly fishing for the first time.
Right.
The variety is all the way across the spectrum.
It's endless. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it really is. The variety, diversity in the fisheries where these people are coming from. It's all over the world. And whether or not you're at the show to pursue buying a trip or thinking about traveling outside of the U.S. or within the U.S., or even for the situation or sake of talking about guides, you want to get into guiding, it's a great opportunity to learn what the shops are about. Meet a lot of the shop employees, the shop owners, the managers. All of these different streaming ways of networking really do help out a lot.
Amazing. And Landon, I'd like to touch a little bit more on, I guess, the business of guiding, the business of, making a name for yourself in the fly fishing industry.
Sure.
What exactly have you found most important to grow kind of your reputation and general clientele throughout the sport of fly fishing? I mean, is it through social media posts? Is it through word of mouth?
Right.
What would you say is most important?
Yeah, for me, it started out with publications, working with Fly Fisherman Magazine, High Country Angler, American Angler. That was my ground and my starting point. And Fly Fisherman gave me the basis and the platform where I could give back through text. So what I would learn in guiding, I could give back in the pages and still do to this day. I think opening up a magazine is a great way to give back and one great way to promote. In addition to that, social media is huge. It's king now. And the reason social media to me is important is I can see what you're up to every day, what you're doing every day. You can learn, is an area fishing well? What can I get out of this area? And there's a lot of little tips and tricks, 60 seconds or less, casting tips, presentation tips. So social media works. Honesty is huge. I think if you're honest to yourself and the consumer and the client, and being honest to yourself, meaning that you're giving 100% every day. People will say, oh man, you want to go out with Seth because Seth's going to go the extra mile. You're going to get a shot. He's not afraid to get you into big fish. He's not afraid to fish to make sure you get something in the net. So that actually helps a ton. Having services like with GoGuide, a platform on your website where people can find out about you, go to your website, and that's kind of your home base, where they can go into the different pages and understand this fishery looks this way, it flows this way, this is the opportunity or the fish we can catch. that plays a big part as well. But there's so many different streams now to get exposure. But when it boils down to it, 100%, and I believe in, I said it before, it's reputation. That is the best way to build your brand. And if you give 100% every day, every person you take out, success or not success, they're going to repeat those words, and other people will find confidence in you as well.
100%.
Yeah.
And with good reputation brings repeat clients.
Oh,
and
yes.
I wanted to bring this up because over the fly fishing shows we went out to dinner, and you mentioned a point that has stuck with me, and that's how you should keep, I think you said approximately 85% of your clients repeat if you can, but then also leave a little space for some new clients to come filter in. So I'd like to wonder if you could expand on that, explain a little bit more what you talked about.
Absolutely. I think it was my 12th year into guiding. I started doing, as an independent guide and outfitter, I started booking my own trips. And I realized that year specifically that I had a lot of clients that I had taken out before, and I didn't have a lot of days open. And I had, individuals reaching out, wanting to do trips, wanting to have new experiences, and not being able to fill the calendar with the new angler. I quickly realized, and just came up with that promotion in my own mind and with my own service, that 75 to 80% repeat, and then 20 to 25% new customers and new clients. And in addition to that, taking out new anglers that have never touched the fly rod. That keeps you on your A game. It's easy to stay consistent with the clients you have that have the skill set you've developed with them, or they come to you with a ton of experience. Yeah, there's challenges and opportunities, and you have to overcome hurdles in many ways in our sport. But if somebody has experience, oftentimes they have the upper hand. Somebody who's never touched a fly rod, you have to help develop that from the ground up, which is one of the best ways to become a good angler. So I always try to remember that, make sure that I can have a chance to meet new people, always be out with new and experienced clientele. And that really is the best way to grow a brand and continue to have growth, whether you're independent or working with a guide service.
100%. Yeah. Well, that's amazing advice, Landon. And I don't want to take any more time before we get rained out here, but I really appreciate you coming on and willing to share some of the inside tips and tricks of being a guide. I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out here?
No, just thank you to you guys, and I appreciate the enthusiasm and energy that you're giving with GoGuide. Everybody I've worked with within your company and organization has been great. I think the services you're offering will make it easier for guides to concentrate on the water and not always have to concentrate on the booking aspect of it. So opening up that space, that freedom of mind where you can create flies, create opportunities, create trips, it makes it worthwhile. And I commend and recommend anybody out there who's getting into guiding, look at GoGuide. Give these guys a chance, give them the opportunity, and I really do think it's going to help you with organizing your schedule, keeping everything locked into place, and giving you that freedom of mind to, again, explore new areas. And just keep up the good work, man.
100%. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You bet.